Another series dub for the Marlins, but at what cost? Sandy Alcantara skips his start. Are we going to see Sandy going in Atlanta? The Marlins do win the doubleheader in Cleveland. Huge games for them, and then lose with a blown sweep on a Sunday. That is a familiar story. But the Marlins have won another series on the bounce. That is 4 series in a row. They are trending heading into Atlanta. Tons to get into. All on today's Locked On Marlins.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings from England and welcome to Locked On Marlins, guys. It is the Monday episode. Happy Monday. I, of course, am your host, Peter Pratt. Hit me up on Twitter at MiamiMarlins_UK. Hit subscribe to the pod. Of course, it is your team every day. And there is a YouTube channel. Head on over to there, hit subscribe, and hello to the everydayers. Also, please leave a comment on YouTube if you are an everydayer. Please let me know what you think about Sean Barrett's beard. If you are watching, Sean Barrett, the UK GOAT, is in the house on Monday, of course. It's still light here in the UK. We're hitting it early. Sean, how we doing, brother?
Not too bad, Pete. The temperature's starting to rise. I'm eyeballing the weekend for the beard coming off, so we shall see.
Oh, the beard's coming off.
Yeah, coming ready for the summer. You know I like my son.
You do. Exactly. Well, we will see the transformation pretty much like in real time on Locked On Marlins. So that will be fun to see, no doubt about it. Guys, before we get into everything, and there is tons to get into after this Guardian series. This episode is brought to you by Ultimate Baseball GM. And if you've ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM and managing your baseball franchise, then this game is definitely for you. Get it downloaded. You just have to visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up on the app stores. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo Locked On, all caps, of course, in the game. Probably more about those guys later on. Just a teaser there on that one. Sean, the Marlins have won another series, 4 on the spin, heading on the road to Cleveland. And it was moist. I'm not going to lie, it was moist. It was one rained out, then a rain delay, double headers going. Boy, oh boy, the Marlins found a way to get it done, though, mate. Taking that double header, it was mighty impressive to take. You always look at those double headers and think, if you take one of two, you're happy. But to take both of them down, I thought was an exceptional result, considering the starters of that day, Devin Smeltzer, Braxton Garrett, no Sandy Alcantara. We'll talk about that shortly. But, taking the series in Cleveland, big dub, I'd say, for these Marlins.
Oh, huge. I mean, as you said, another series win. And I messaged you saying, like, these series wins don't feel like enough. I feel like the team have played well enough to earn a sweep. Specifically, that one in Arizona, that loss, that hurt.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. At the moment, four series wins. You can't whinge at that. The team are playing well. They're getting around a bit of trouble here and there, but ultimately, you are what your record says you are. And at the moment, they're a winning ball club.
They are a winning ball club. They are over 500. Couple of games over, which is very, very impressive and feels similar to 2022. We have to say that they have quite a similar record in some ways to 2022. But Devin Smeltzer got the start in one of the games. One of the funniest things about this, and you may not have seen this, but Devin Smeltzer, not that active on Twitter. It's fair to say the news dropped that Smeltzer is starting the game. Sandy Alcantara skipping the start. I'm going to talk about him in more detail shortly, but Devin Smeltzer announces the starter. He just had a stinking outing as a reliever, giving up 2 bombs, two-run bombs, if I recall correctly. It's fair to say Marlins Twitter didn't take this news that well. Few people, it was some, outlandish tweets out there. Smeltzer, not that active on Twitter, but he went and started liking various of these tweets after the game. So Smeltzer kind of, letting people know that he's watching. But for those that were watching, and pretty much we all were, I mean, I was, with the rain delay on a Saturday evening, I was lubricated, no doubt about it. I mean, I was watching the game through one eye, to be honest with you. But from what I could see, from my vantage point, what an outing from Devin Smeltzer. A huge outing, very Dan Castano-like in many ways, where he just gets dropped into the doubleheader, delivers, the Marlins get the dub. Huge from Devin Smeltzer.
Absolutely huge. And I think I might have dodged a bullet there then, because he certainly didn't see my tweets. And they weren't overly positive.
Go and check it out. For those listening, go and have a look at Smeltzer's likes. He does nothing on Twitter, but he was liking a ton of tweets that were slandering him.
but then, he pitched well. It wasn't a case of like he was dodging trouble and got lucky to get through 4 innings. He pitched really, really well. And there was a moment in time, just a very brief moment in time, where I thought he'd go further into the game than Bieber, because he really was struggling to begin the game.
Yeah.
And Smeltzer, he 4 innings, solid work. The bullpen came in, and this bullpen's just been crazy. But for Smeltzer, I mean, maybe starting games is where he wants to be. And under that performance, and with the way the rotation is at the moment, he may get another opportunity.
Absolutely. It's my thought too. I think I talked about it last week on one of the episodes, thinking about these guys, a bit like maybe Braxton Garrett, where if you've been a starter and then you transition to the pen, like that's actually quite a difficult transition just because of the uncertainty. Like these guys, I feel like they have their routines and they all want to know what they're doing and they do this and that in preparation. Smeltzer's probably the same. He started plenty of games historically, and thus you put him in that starter role. He didn't know what time it was starting this time because it was raining. But either way, it was great to see. Like you said, 4 innings of work. I thought he was going to go one more, actually. I thought he was going to maybe do 5. But then they lean on the pen. And it was just like vintage pen this year, right? You then get Nardi, Brazaban, Barnes, and Okert coming out. And 5 innings of work from them boys, giving up just 1 hit. That is... And 1 walk, I must say. So 1 hit, 1 walk, and 4 Ks across those boys. But the story at the early part of the season, there's a few of them, but the main one that's really kind of trending is this bullpen, mate. It has just been absolutely magic. And the fact that the Marlins are 6-0 in 1-run games, for me, is absolutely wild. Completely wild, mate. And it just shows night and day, this team, they're needing to lean on the bullpen. Like the bullpen is carrying this team right now, which is wild to say, but it's great to see as well, right?
Well, absolutely. I mean, it is a case of, I don't want to put them down or anything, but they are relative no-name pitchers. I mean, if you ask fans of other teams, these aren't the guys that, they're not the big contract guys. And you see good teams, you see teams like the Rays have these no-name bullpens who just go out and throwing gas 9 times out of 10 and pitching really well. And we've spoken millions of times about the way that the Marlins have to construct a team with their budget. And the rotation is always going to be these low budget, no name guys. But no, all respect to them, to Skip. I mean, you've got to say Skip at the moment has managed really well. I know sometimes when you can't explain something, you praise or you blame the manager. So that's where Mattingly got the negative and Skip's getting the positive at the moment, and Kim as well. I mean, I know there's a lot of people out there that want to say bad things about Kim, but I've always been a fan of her, and I think she's done a good job under the circumstances. And I think at the moment the team's playing well. There's a lot of confidence in the ball club, and the results are starting to sort of kick the Marlins' way for once.
Yeah, that's true. I was, just thinking about it myself. The fact that, to be 6-0 in 1-run games, like they're having some bounces of the balls at certain times. Like there were some double plays, for Dylan Floro, I think in game 2, in that series where he comes in, rolls some big double plays in some big spots. Puck as well. He had got himself into some tricky situations. Like they're 1 hit away from catastrophe quite a few times, but somehow thus far, every time, they're getting out of it. And that it's probably unsustainable overall. Like that isn't sustainable. And there's going to be a few blown saves in there, a few blowies mixed in. But, right now it's just been great to ride this kind of bullpen train while, other areas of the club start to kind of, get themselves in sync. Like the bullpen just come out firing. The rotation hasn't. The offense in the main hasn't. But there's green shoots in both of those areas. So we hope maybe as the bullpen drops off a touch or regresses slightly to the mean, however you want to look at it, those other areas start to kind of come up too with the rotation. But we need to talk about the rotation. We're going to talk about it after the first ad break because the main news, like we can't, there was almost emergency podcast territory, mate. As soon as I saw Sandy was skipping a start, I was like, oh boy, here we go. This doesn't sound good. But I wanted to wait to see the information And we have information, but we're also maybe slightly too early. So me and Sean will do our best to dissect the Sandy Alcantara news as best we can. But let's get into this first ad. And it's, of course, our good friends at Ultimate Baseball GM. And, of course, they have sexy graphics with the QR code. So if you're watching on YouTube, you will see the graphics and the QR code. Guys, just get this downloaded. It's a free game. What the hell? And it basically, if you want to manage every part of a baseball franchise, they've got you covered. Hiring the coaches and staff, managing finances, scouting and drafting, everything through free agency, ups and downs of a season. You have it all in this challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM. Just wait for this bit now. It's completely free. And it's playable offline. So you don't even need any Wi-Fi. No internet, no nothing. It's playable on the go as and when you want to. Locked On Marlins listeners get 100% free boost to the franchise when using promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check this bad boy out if you haven't already. Get it downloaded. Come on. Visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up on the app stores. That's probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM. Start your dynasty today. All right. So then, Sean, Sandy Alcantara, it was almost like, season over, to be honest with you, when I saw this news drop. He's skipping the start, he's not making his start, was how it was reported, and it links to a bicep issue. When I saw that, I was like, oh, man. Oh, man. 1 to 10 for you on the panic stations when the news dropped that Sandy had an arm injury and would not be starting in Cleveland.
I mean, it's got to be a 10, as you said. It would be season over. I mean, when you're talking about your ace and an injury, a scratch start and they're saying it's fine and everything should be okay. But until he's on the mound and he looks like Sandy, you're going to worry. Anytime you hear about an injury, you hope it's part of the leg or an oblique. Well, maybe not an oblique, but an injury that's arm specifically, pitching arm specifically is worst case scenario. Hopefully it is just a case of you're dealing with a prized horse here, and you don't want to have it go for a run when it's not quite feeling it. You rest him. You give him all the time he needs. If he needs to skip another start just to be right, to be perfect, you do that. These 1 or 2 starts really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. What you want is Sandy for the whole season. And I think if it was anybody else, if it was your long man coming up for a spot start and he felt that bicep, would they have made him go out there? Maybe, potentially. But because it's Sandy, you've got to be, better safe than sorry.
Oh boy, I'm still nervous, to be honest with you, mate, because as we sit here right now, it's Monday afternoon, early evening in the UK. So we'll wait to see what news drops. But what's been reported thus far is there's going to be a bullpen at some point today in Atlanta, and in effect, if it's all good and all go, then he will make a start in this series. But if it isn't all go, then that's going to be the same situation as Trevor Rogers. And we've seen the news on Trevor Rogers. He's gone onto the 15-day IL. So it wasn't the ultra serious situation of Tommy John or any kind of surgery required in a 60-day IL stint. But, it does sound like the Marlins will have a decision to make here. And if there's any risk, any risk at all, I know, it's hard to be without Sandy for any period of time. We're just not used to that. But for me, if there's any risk, they should take the opportunity to put him down on that 15-day IL and just let him fully heal rather than ask him now in the, late April in, game 20 or whatever it might be to take a risk. Doesn't seem worthwhile at this point. What about you on that one?
Yeah, I mean, if he's going to skip another start, then it makes sense because you're not going to lose him for any longer period. He's going to be away for those 15 days because you'll backdate it. You can get yourself another player up to the majors to help support the team. Sandy, if he's not going to pitch in his next start, which is scheduled for, I think, Wednesday, then put him on the 15, bring a guy up. He's not going to do any good for the roster being there and not pitching. We play the long game. This season is incredibly long, 162 games, 2 starts in the middle of it. The Marlins can survive that. They can't survive the loss of Sandy.
No way. You hit the nail there, mate. That's the description, isn't it? You play the long game, and they have to play the long game here with Sandy. There's no point at this juncture to take that risk. There really isn't. And we're going to see seemingly Brian Hoeing in this series as well. So he's going to kind of step up into the Trevor Rogers spot. So this is a real different looking rotation. And to your point earlier, maybe Smeltzer is better off as a starter. And, we're going to be in that situation where versus the opening day rotation anyway, you're going to have Braxton Garrett into the rotation, Brian Hoeing, and maybe Devin Smeltzer. So the strength of this Marlins team, the rotation, decimated already, man. Potentially 3 guys on the 15-day IL, which, and the reality, and we spoke about it as well through, the months leading up to the season, there wasn't a ton of depth seemingly there for the starting rotation, just because, with Sixto's situation, Max Meyer's situation, Jake Eder, Uri Perez is like not quite ready. And so there's, they're going to have to maybe mix and match, which is going to, again, ask a lot for this bullpen. That's the thing, is like the more and more you eke into these guys, your Smeltzers, your Hoeings, your Braxton Garretts, maybe Red Cabreras too, because he hadn't shown much length either. It's just asking more and more for this pen. And that's the worry, isn't it? That the pen is just overly taxed. Next thing is the leverage situation start to blow up. Next thing is 1-run wins become 1-run losses. And that starts to spiral the wrong way, like we saw in 22, right?
Yeah, I think the one thing that gives me a little bit of hope is the fact that Skip seems to have a good idea of when a game's gone.
Yeah.
If a guy goes 3 innings, then you don't want to blow through your short inning guys. Throw up a long man, let him go 4-5 innings, get out of that game alive, ready to start another game the next day. And if it's a close game and your starter goes 5 innings or more, then you've got your late inning guys to win that game. There have been some games where I thought Skip should have maybe used some of those short guys to keep the game close, to see what the offense can do, which is sometimes laughable with the Marlins. But I think the way he's done it, the way he's managed the bullpen and only used those short inning guys, or at least the late guys, absolutely when they're needed and in their roles, because you don't want to overuse them. You don't want your setup men and your closer going 70 or projected for 70, 80 innings.
Yeah, too much
season, because they're pitching fantastically at the moment in the role that they are designed to do. You ask for any more than that again and again and again, then that's when you start to see the ERA start to bloom, the injuries start to happen, and you create another problem by trying to fix the previous one whilst also not fixing the previous one. So it's managing a rotation and a bullpen is a very delicate job. And so far, I've liked what I've seen from Skip. But with these injuries in the rotation, that challenge is just becoming harder and harder for him. But hopefully he can manage to continue to do what he's done.
Yeah, for sure. I think you make a really great point as well. How many times did we see, like last year and in Don Mattingly's tenure as manager, where games were cooked and next thing is like the leverage pen was out there and you're thinking, what the hell's going on? Like, why is the closer out when we're down by 7 runs or whatever it might be? And you will, and I guess it might just be just kind of ticking the guys over for whatever reason. Maybe there was no close games in the past couple of days, but I was left scratching my head a few times with Donnie's bullpen management, I have to be honest. And Skip Schumacher, for me, yeah, you're right. He's been impressive the way he's managed it thus far, which has been, he's obviously pushing all the right buttons. Like, that's what we're saying. Like, the bullpen's firing. Everyone's contributing. It's great to see. And long may it continue. I can't remember a bullpen stint like this for the Marlins in all the years I followed the team, to be honest with you. So, yeah, it's absolutely wild. Let's flip over to the offensive guys after the next ad, mate, because there's a few guys we really need to get into. Jazz Chisholm Jr. continues to have strikeout difficulties and umpire difficulties as well. Avisail Garcia hit a home run. I'm intrigued to get your thoughts on that one. Sean is already shaking his head on that. Brian De La Cruz, though, with 3 doubles in a single game, and Luis Arias continues to absolutely rake. So some positives and some negatives perhaps to get into after the ads. But our first, this is a double ad segment. It's a double ad spot. You can tell it's a Monday, right? And this is a new sponsor as well, which is great to see. And this show is brought to you by BetterHelp. I don't know if you've heard of these guys before, and just a reminder, it's BetterHelp, not Better Health. And, fundamentally, this is all about finding therapy and, looking after yourselves. I think fundamentally, as Marlins fans, we absolutely know about that. And getting to know yourself can be a lifelong process, especially because we're always growing and changing, for certain. But if you're thinking of starting in therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist. Switch therapist anytime for no additional charge. Sounds easy, right? Sounds very easy. Discover your potential with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnMLB to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, of course, .com/LockedOnMLB. All right. And our boys over at Built Bar are back. Firstly, guys, I have to shout this out. And I haven't put it out on Twitter, but I have to mention this. Alan Witz, you will be listening. I know you will. Alan Witz, I have to applaud you. I appreciate you. You're one of the most kind human beings ever. Why am I saying this? Alan managed to get me 2 bars of coconut puffs all the way over from the States. He managed to get them all the way over to here and sent them to me unbeknown to me. So I've had 2 coconut puffs delivered to my door from Alan Witz. And Alan, I love you for that, brother. And they were glorious too. Anyway, onto the Built's the Built ad read. If you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, then you need the best tasting protein bar ever. And it's true. Built, you got to try them. If you like me and want to make healthier snack choices, which is true, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just the thing for you. Built bars and Built puffs are healthy and taste amazing. Seriously, they taste so amazing, you won't think they're good for you. You got to try them. They've got so many flavors, tons of flavors, churro, peanut butter brownie, and cookies and cream. I don't know how they do it, but somehow they taste immense, but only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. Unbelievable scenes. Now, you don't need to wait for a box. For years, we've talked about getting them from Built.com, but you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club, while you still can get your specialty flavors at Built.com. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today. Walk to the pharmacy section, grab yourself a box of Builts. 4-bar box, cookies and cream, double chocolate, or those coconut puffs. Or if you're close to a Sam's Club, run in 13-bar box extravaganza with the hit flavors brownie batter puff and churro puff. Thank me later, and I'm certainly going to enjoy those Builts. All right, Sean, let's talk offense then, mate. I'm feeling energized talking about Built Bar. Let's start with the positives, mate. I must say, Brian De La Cruz it's September Brian De La Cruz. I mean, there were some skeptics. They've been on this podcast. They've been on Twitter. There were some skeptics. But for me, Brian De La Cruz has proven that he is at least an average major league hitter. And I think an above average hitter. Where's your head at with Brian De La Cruz right now?
Yeah, I think you're pretty much bang on there. I think a lot of the question marks that I had was, the longevity. Obviously, he's a young guy and he hit well last year. But did you want to go into a season with him as a starter? I think I said I preferred him as your next man up, your 4th outfielder, play all the positions, and see if he earns himself a spot in the lineup. And that's exactly what he's done. I mean, I could point at a slightly raised BABIP, but that's just a hot streak. He'll come down a little bit. I don't think he is a 300 hitter. Time will tell. But the inputs are good. He's taken a walk. The strikeouts are okay. A 24% strikeout rate is pretty much probably average now for your major league.
Yeah.
At this day and age. So the numbers there are fine and repeatable to a certain degree. Do I think he's more 270 hitter, 280 hitter? Yeah, but that's fine. There's a bit of pop in the bat. There's a little bit of speed. Defensively, can be a bit of a ride every now and then. But the Marlins have in De La Cruz a guy that's extending that batting lineup.
Yeah.
That 1 to 4 now we can have a little bit of trust in. ideally you'd like it to be 1-5, 1-6, like you see in other teams. But
Yeah.
at the moment, De La Cruz has stepped up. He's done his job. He's done maybe more than his job. And the Marlins have in him a controllable young outfielder who has some promise.
Absolutely. Feels like another Kim dub. I mean, Yimi Garcia, Brian De La Cruz. Feels like a win for the Fish there. I guess the Astros probably saw it as a win too. Like Yimi, I think, pitched well for them. Anyway, Brian De La Cruz for me is he's carried on. He's carried on from where he left off in many ways. And yeah, the Marlins have a cost-controlled league minimum guy for many, many years. Okay, it's a bit of an adventure in left field from time to time, but there's gap power there. There's home run power in there. There's, some element of plate discipline at times, but overall, I think he's showed that he's for real. I think that was the question going into the year: is Brian De La Cruz's bat for real? I always felt like he felt like he was streaky, not Jesus Sanchez levels of streakiness, which he's the most streaky player ever, probably. But yeah, for me, Brian De La Cruz has answered everything, and he's been trusted. This is the other thing, right? Where we look at Skip Schumacher and the decisions he's making, and he's trusting Brian De La Cruz to hit in the heart of the lineup. He's in the cleanup spot pretty regularly, the 5-hole. Like, he is smack bang in the middle of the order there for the Marlins, and he's being trusted. And I think, for me, everyday player, he's getting the confidence of knowing he's in the lineup, he's in the middle of the order. He knows what he has to do. And I think that's helping him, to be honest with you. Talk to me about Luis Arias. He continues to just be an absolute stud, no doubt. How concerned are you about this finger injury, though, mate? Because I must say, it feels like it's lingering. It feels like it's going to continue to linger. I'm intrigued to see how the Marlins really handle this with Luis Arias, because, again, a bit like Sandy, you don't want anything to it is a long game. They need to play the long game with Arias. But again, what we saw on Sunday, he wasn't in the lineup, and they struggled without him in the lineup, actually, to get runs over. But thoughts on Arias and whether maybe an extended time away just to get this finger right could be the right course of action?
I think if you asked me before this series, I'd say the same thing I did with Sandy, and why risk it and why go through that problem. But he actually, because you could see it affected him, and he didn't get hits for a couple of games, which all of a sudden you've got to start asking the question, what's going on? No other hitter in baseball would you do that, but for Arias not getting hits every single game, you start to question if there's a problem.
Yeah.
And then he goes and gets 3 hits in one game, and as you said on the Sunday, without him, the offense looked without him. I think if the Marlins thought that there was a conceivable chance that this injury could A, linger, or B, get worse, they wouldn't be playing him.
No.
I think it's, the finger got a bit banged up, and he probably felt it for a couple of days, and he probably still feels it a little bit, but it's not a major injury. It's not something that's going to affect him going forward into the season. It's one of those day-to-day injuries. But in baseball, you're going to have a day-to-day injury pretty much every single day. That's the nature of the beast of the game, playing every single day. But if it was a serious issue, they wouldn't play him. I think it's fine.
Talk to me about Garrett Hampson. I mean, I didn't expect to have a full Garrett Hampson segment on this pod, but it's time. We need to talk about Garrett Hampson. For me, he's basically just kind of slotted into the John Birdie role, and he's kind of doing it well. Hampson as that super util for me is really fitting the brief. I mean, there was a few skeptics around this one, but he's come up with some big hits and some big spots, and defensively has looked fine. Overall, it's hard to knock the contribution thus far from Garrett Hampson, right?
Absolutely. He's done the Bertie role better than Bertie has done.
It's the Garrett Hampson role now.
The numbers, you don't want to look too deep into the numbers. He's not walking. He's striking out quite a bit. Yeah. He's on a hot streak. The BABIP's gone crazy, and it's not sustainable, but you ride it. It is that case of every week you're going to have a different batter. Just suddenly the balls are going to drop for him, and he's going to get these hits. So for Hampson to get that is a good thing. Anything the Marlins get from him is a positive. It's the same way when you start your backup catcher. They get into one and hit a home run, you take it. You don't ask any questions or wonder where it came from. You just accept that you got some good luck that day and go forward with it. Hampson, at the moment, has deserved his spot on the lineup, something that I necessarily might not have said when he first came up. But as long as he keeps hitting, the Marlins need all the hits they can get.
Yeah.
If they're going to come from unlikely sources like him, then fantastic.
This is what I like about the way things were constructed this year over last, where actually they just got some, big league vets in that were the bench bats and the reserves of the bench bats. Where if you need them, you're calling up a Garrett Hampson that's actually been in the big leagues for multiple years, rather than you calling in, Jordan Groshans or whatever it might be that's had, limited amounts of major league experience. And the chances and the probability of actually hitting the ground running, so to speak, I think are higher with a Garrett Hampson or a Gurriel or whatever it might be. So, we'll see how it goes. But, Hampson, it's hard to take away his contribution. It's been impressive. Talking about a contribution, mate, and we'll kind of wrap up here because we're running long, which is, it's Monday. We always run long. But 3-run home run from Avisail Garcia at the back end of Sunday's game. Has that done anything for you in terms of adjusting your assessment of Avisail Garcia's value to this Marlins team?
No, it just means I've got to put up with him for longer. He hit a middle fastball in garbage time.
Yeah.
I mean, you swing the bat that many times, you're bound to get into one every now and then. For me, Garcia's done. I've actually made an active decision to stop calling him Avi, because that seems too much like a nickname and too much like I like him. So he's now Garcia to me.
Yeah, understood. The time is nigh on Avi, perhaps. I don't know. Okay, well, we are bang out of time. The Marlins, we won't. I don't want to end it on a sour note. It's not a sour note. Avi hit a home run, a 3-run bomb, and I was actually, before he did that, I was kind of looking at his numbers, thinking, okay, you've got Avisail Garcia hitting in the heart of the order, and it's the back end of April. The Marlins are over 500. And he's only had 2 RBIs at that point. I was absolutely stunned when I saw that. And one of them came on his own solo shot in the 1-0 game. But the Marlins win the series in Cleveland. For me, that's a win. They head into Atlanta. It's a huge test, Atlanta, no doubt. The pitching is going to be tested because the offense in Atlanta remains lively, no doubt. A lot of home runs, a lot of power. And so it's going to be a really interesting test. They're coming off, they've lost 4 games on the spin, the Braves. So if ever the Marlins were feeling like there was an opportunity to go in and add some more pain, the time is now. If they can go in and sweep the Braves, they will leapfrog them in the standings. Wouldn't that be a scene? No doubt. All eyes on Sandy Alcantara and his bullpen. Will Sandy be starting Atlanta? Hopefully he will be. We'll wait to see on that one. But thanks for making Locked On Marlins your first listener of the day. Thanks to the UK GOAT, Sean Barrett, for joining me. We'll be back, of course, tomorrow, Tuesday's episode. I'll see you then.